Joining me now, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, who just announced his opposition to the president's picks to run the State Department and the CIA. Senator Paul, I want to get to that in just a moment, but all morning we are looking at thousands of kids, 3,100 schools in total, standing up and speaking out, asking for lawmakers to do something on gun control. Do you have any response this morning to these kids?
You know, I have three children, and I'm horrified by what happened down there and can't imagine sending my kids to school and worrying about their safety. So, yes, I'm horrified by it, and we should do something. I'm a physician, so I like to look at things very systematically. And as we look at the situation in Florida, we need to look at what happened. Why wasn't he on a no-buy list? Why wasn't he a felon? And I think there are probably maybe a half dozen, 2 dozen times when he could have been arrested or convicted of a felony and his gun rights stripped. Had I been on a jury, a local adjudication, I would have voted to have not only to have him on a background list where he couldn't buy a gun, but really he should have actually become a convicted felon for threatening teachers and threatening violence. And then you actually can go into the home with a court order and take the guns. I'd go one step further. He probably shouldn't have been allowed to live in a home with guns, being a convicted felon. And that's typically what happens. So the real breakdown here was nobody bothered to do their job. Local law enforcement sat on their hands and did nothing. And as a consequence, this terrible tragedy happened.
Then are you saying the gun laws that are currently in place are enough? Do you think that the laws that we currently have, if enacted, are all we need, or do you believe there needs to be more?
I think if you look at this particular situation and any of the different violent situations, we need to look at what happened and we need to fix what went wrong with the system. In this case, local law enforcement, the FBI was tipped off to a felony, terroristic threatening. If you say on your YouTube feed, if you simply say that I think I'm going to become a professional school shooter, that is a felony. It's a terroristic threatening, and it is a felony. He should have been convicted for that. The FBI didn't do their job. The local sheriff, he was called like 40 times. If a guy's in a neighbor's yard brandishing a weapon, either threatening to shoot at chickens or shooting at things in someone's yard, that is a felony, and he should have been convicted for that. The teachers at school said he was threatening them. The teachers didn't call the police. Nobody did their job on this.
But
and it's so sad because I really think those 17 lives could have been saved if people would have done their job.
Okay, well, let's turn to the presser that you just had because it's an important one. You're opposing Mike Pompeo and Gina Haspel's nominations. Why? Are you worried that this could hold up the planned North Korea negotiations?
One of the things that I liked about President Trump was that he consistently and loudly has opposed regime change in Iraq, the Iraq War, but he's appointing people around him who not only still support the Iraq War, never learned the lesson that regime change led to instability and chaos in the Middle East. These are people that he's appointing, Pompeo, who have advocated for regime change in Iran next door. So they love the Iraq War so much they now are for a war in Iran. These aren't the kind of people who actually support the notion that the Iraq War was misguided. On Ms. Haspel, I mean, if you read her quotes when she was present during waterboarding, she was gleeful at the waterboarding and was sort of, gloating at the fact that the guy's acting as he's struggling to breathe and drowning in fluid. And so this is not what America stands for. Torture is not what America's about. I have family members in the armed service. I don't want to send a message to the world that torture is fine because our young men and women can be captured at some point in time, too. And if the whole world thinks that America tortures prisoners, they'll do exactly the same to ours. And so this is a woman who's the poster child for what went wrong with waterboarding after 9/11. And she should never, ever be at the head of the CIA. She should never, ever be advanced to any kind of position in the CIA.
Then do you have any other names in mind, if not Pompeo and Haspel?
Well, I think there are many people, if you want a career person, someone who's served in the CIA, I think there are probably dozens and dozens of people who weren't involved with waterboarding, that weren't directly involved with torture, that weren't gleefully showing how much they love the idea of someone being tortured. So, no, I think she's absolutely disqualified, and there are probably dozens of other people. I wouldn't presume to know the individual names at the CIA, but I'm sure we can find a career person over there that hasn't tortured anybody.
All right. You're the first we've heard to openly protest or block these nominations. Do you believe there's other Republicans who are with you here?
I don't think there'll be very many Republicans, if any Republicans. This is really up to the Democrats, who have said they are opposed to torture. Are they going to allow someone to be at the head of the CIA who ran a torture camp in a foreign country? Why were they in Thailand? Because it's against the law to torture people in America. So Democrats need to step up and oppose Ms. Haspel, but they also, if they were truly opposed to the Iraq War, they ought to step up and say, do we really want a proponent of the Iraq War and a proponent of a new war with Iran? Do we want that person running the Secretary of State, being the Secretary of State? I think that the State Department should be about diplomacy. You're the chief diplomat. If you're the chief one advocating for regime change in Iran, that's not diplomacy. That's the opposite of what you want at the State Department.
All right, Senator Paul, thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining me today.
Thank you.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.